Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Simonhans in the 15-minute pool on ICC. So we've got a pretty high-rated opponent today, Simonhans. Just trying to figure out what I want to do against this guy. First, I'm actually going to check his stats just to see. Okay, he's 10-1. He's played 11 games. Let's go with D5. We're going to play a double queen pawn. I think I'm going to defend with the Queen's Gambit declined. I play a lot of Slav, if you've seen, but you know, this guy seems pretty proficient, and maybe playing it a little closer to the vest with black is in order. Not taking as many risks as usual in the opening. This is a very new account. The only other time control they played is standard, in which they've also won all their games. Queen b3 is very unusual. Never seen this move before. So it pressures d5. I mean, my first instinct is just a castle. I kind of think he's going to play bishop g5 if I do that. And threatening to take and then maybe win d5, but I got to believe that castling cannot be a mistake. Let's just do it. And if he plays bishop g5, I'll figure out a plan. I mean, c6 is always an option. I mean, what would be the point of queen b3 otherwise? He captures instead. Okay, I'll just take with my pawn. Because now if he goes bishop g5, I can put the pawn on c6, and I don't feel as bad about it because my bishop can come out in this diagonal later. Plays e3. Yeah, this is a very unusual treatment of this. Locks in the dark square bishop voluntarily. I sort of want to play actively with c5, just break right in the center, because I don't have to worry about bishop g5 anymore, so it is possible to play that way. I could also just go b6 and bishop b7 and knight bd7, etc. Let's play, well, yeah, let's play c5. Let's see how this pans out. I'm curious. So if he takes, I take with the bishop. He's got to complete his development then. He has to catch up. So that's why I've been encouraged to play like this. Yeah, let's take. I was thinking for a second about knight bd7, but he has knight takes d5 if I were to do that. Knight a4. Probably back to e7 now. Could put the bishop on d6 too. But I feel like e7 might be better, especially if I want to go pawn d4 to get rid of that pawn. So let's do that. I'd be shocked if he didn't move his light square bishop now, like bishop e2 or bishop d3, because he needs to castle. So now knight c6, castle. Could play d4 there, but he might have rook d1. Let's go knight c6 anyways, because we need to play this move. Bishop d2. So d4 is thematic, just trying to play to get rid of the isolated pawn. And does he have a big counter argument against that? None that I see. d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4, knight takes, queen takes, bishop c3. I have queen e4. He could maybe castle then, because if queen takes e2, rook e1. Maybe. If not d4, other candidates include knight e4. Maybe rook b8, so I could prepare a move like bishop e6. I actually really like the look of knight e4 now that I think about it. Because if he were to castle, I could trade and then go d4. Looks pretty awesome. Let's do knight e4. More dynamic than playing d4 right away. Might give him something to think about. Just going to check his history real quick, because I'm curious like which game he lost. He lost to Dihar. Okay. All right, so if I take on d2, he's going to take with the rook, I assume. Bishop b4, knight back to c3. Could also play rook b8 again and go bishop e6. There may not be a rush to take his bishop. Take d2, he takes with his rook. Yeah, there's nothing much doing against his dark square diagonal, e1 to a5. Rook b8 could just be a good move. It's useful. If I play bishop e6, is he really going to take on b7? Bishop e6 right away, I mean. Would he really play queen takes b7? Hard to say, he might. I could take on d2 then, but it's a little nebulous. Let's go here. Idea, just bishop e6, not having to lose the b pawn. Because I think our knight could be valuable on the e4 square. It certainly makes his life more difficult. If he wants to save his bishop, he has to play bishop e1. Okay, now knight d4, so I can take and get rid of my sole isolated pawn. He would also have an isolated pawn himself then. Okay, let's take. And after he takes back, do I want to play knight takes d2, or do I keep my knight on e4? Not sure why he was thinking right there. There's nothing to think about. Knight takes d2, rook takes d2, queen a5 maybe. Hitting the rook and also guarding c5 a little bit better. Because now he's getting to a point where he could move this bishop, like he might play bishop f4, bishop e3, so I feel like I should take it. So I think I'll do that. Rook takes queen a5. That's the plan. Bishop f6. Bishop f6 seems desirable too, but I don't want to allow his knight to come to c5. I'd like to keep it out of that square if possible, at least for the time being. Queen a5, rook c2. I can always harass a rook that comes to c1. So that's a nice possibility. Let's go queen a5. I feel like my position's fine with the two bishops. Even though I have the bishop pair, it's not a position that's hugely conducive to having the bishop pair, just because of the isolated d-pawns. So I wouldn't be surprised like if we got into some bishop versus bishop position. So if like his knight gets traded for one of my bishops. Like case in point, I could play bishop b4 right now if I wanted. But I would like to avoid a light square bishop versus light square bishop position. That would probably be a bit better for him. Maybe rook f c8 in this position. Keeping b7 guarded and pumping up the pressure on his knight. Let's do that. d5 is guarded twice by my queen and bishop. He can play bishop f3, but I have some good stuff against that, like bishop b4 or maybe rook c4 is interesting too. Note that if he plays rook c1 here, he's blundering in view of bishop g5. So I like that I have that tactic. I'm a bit behind on the clock right now, so he has been playing very quickly. But I'm happy with the result of the opening. This turned out fine. For those of you who are just starting out in chess and you're taking a little bit more seriously now, I would recommend playing the Queen's Gambit declined against d4, just so you get a good classical footing against d4 openings. I think it's important to know how to play, like to support your center and learn this very venerable line, because it's a line that all the world champions have relied on at some point or another, and it can only help your chess to learn it. Okay, so queen a4. Too bad I don't have rook takes c3, removing the defender because he just takes my queen. So I'm thinking bishop b4. But if I do that, he can swap and then play one of his rooks to c1. Probably he'd go rook c2. But maybe I had bishop f5 then. Not sure. Seems like I might have a tiny bit of pressure in that resulting position. I could also just trade queens with him. And maybe then play bishop b4. But even though I can get my rook into c2 after that, and I'm not sure that it's all that great. Like, what am I really gaining by doing that? Hard to say. What about queen takes a4, knight takes a4, bishop b4. If rook d1, I might have b5. Would win a pawn. So rook d3 instead, though. Rook d3, I could bring my rook into c2. Could do that. Bishop b4, he's going to swap and then play rook c2. Somehow that seems easier for him to defend. Okay, let's trade. I think I will venture that bishop b4 move. I'm hoping he goes rook d1. He'll probably play rook d3 though. And I think I have nice options against that too. Could play b5, but he does have knight back to c3 then. Okay, he does play rook d1. So now b5 wins a pawn, does it not? He has to go to c3 or c5. In either case, I can take it with my bishop. And I'm up a pawn. If I go rook c2, he has bishop d3, just rebuffing my rook. So this is better. If a3, I can just take on a4. So if he takes b4, I have rook takes b4. So still down on time, but position looking good, improving with every move. Looks like we're going to win a pawn now. As far as the best way to give the pawn, that's probably it right there. Pre-move that. Love to get into c2 now. No doubt about that. He's going to oppose me on the file. Let's do this. He'll probably take, because otherwise he'd have to give up control of the file. I am attacking his rook twice. And after take, he might be thinking about playing b4. So if my rook moves, he can play bishop takes b5. But if b4, rook c2, take, I take a2, I'm still up a solid pawn. It's the d pawn. I think his b4 pawn will still be weak. I'll have good winning chances there. It's going to be tough, but same color bishops. Better to have same color bishops when you're up a pawn than opposite color bishops. Way more drawing chances for the defending side with opposite color bishops. I feel like if he's going to play rook c1 on the previous move, he should know already whether he's going to take on c5 or not. Like, my reply is so obvious. Of course I'm going to play rook bc8. Like, in my opinion, you really wouldn't want to have to think here. You should already have your move planned out. Okay, that just straight up drops a rook. Not sure what he was thinking there. He might have just got the move order messed up. Sometimes that happens. Like, you'll be thinking like you've already made a certain exchange, and you play the move that you were intending to play after that exchange is made, except you play it before the exchange was made. I remember Mikhail Tal saying that in his autobiography, which is a really great book, by the way, one of my favorite chess books. It's really good entertainment and instruction. But he talks about, Mikhail Tal said that like once every year during his tournament days, he would make a mistake like White just made there. Because I'm pretty sure they meant to play, just go back here, rook takes c5, rook takes c5, and then b4, that line I was talking about. And then the game would go on, rook c2, take here, probably take here. and I'd be trying to win with my extra pawn, but he just made a move order error and played this first. Okay, let's have a look at it. So Queen's Gambit declined. He does not play the exchange variation like I usually do. I always play knight c3, and then if knight f6, I like taking on d5 and bishop g5, as you guys know from the white side. But he plays knight f3 instead. Knight f6. So now that white has committed to knight f3, it's not necessary for black to play bishop e7. I mean, black could play bishop e7, but the value of bishop e7 is really against this knight c3 move, in stopping them from going for that line I just mentioned, the exchange variation. So if you play this line for black, you might want to consider bishop e7 on move 3 against knight c3, but as soon as that knight is committed to f3, it doesn't matter as much. Because the simple answer is that this knight can no longer go to e2, and in the middle game, white won't have this central pawn push plan. So, of going f3 and e4 if the knight were on e2. And if you're sketchy about the details of that, go look in my archives at more Queen's Gambit decline games where I expand on that. So knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, bishop e7. I want to try bishop b4 sometime. I want to try this Rogozin variation, because it's pretty trendy right now. It looks really interesting. And I don't know a whole lot about it, so I'd like to try it more. And then this queen b3 move, I bet this has been played before. It just looks kind of weird to me. I mean, he does pressurize d5, but he didn't have any follow-up measures to truly inconvenience me. I just castled. I thought his idea would be bishop g5. It really did. Trying to take and then take again on d5 and asking how I want to defend this, because I might have played c6, which is not a tremendously desirable move a lot of times if white hasn't captured on d5 yet. So kind of wonder if he was just already making this up or if he actually is playing something that he's played before. But he just took. Because now bishop g5 I don't think is as desirable, because after c6 I have an ideal chain and this diagonal is open for the bishop. If he had played bishop g5 first and then I had played c6, it's questionable what my bishop will do. There's no easy answer to that question at the moment. So he takes, I take, e3, and then c5. Normally I don't like going for positions with an isolated pawn, but based on how he's handled the last few moves, I felt inclined to do this. I was kind of emboldened by his queen b3 and e3 moves. I really think he should just play bishop e2 and get ready to castle now. Something like this. Doesn't look like much for white, but at least he's playing against the isolated pawn. The queen is kind of misplaced on b3. I don't think it wants to be here for too much longer. But he played bishop, or sorry, I think he played knight a4 after this. Let's start bringing the engine on board now. I wasn't sure whether to play bishop d6 or bishop e7. I ultimately decided on bishop e7 because I wanted my queen communicating with the pawn. And if ever I play d4, it'll be more helpful with the queen here, helping guard the pawn. So bishop e2, knight c6, bishop d2. And I'm glad I didn't just play d4 right here. This would probably be almost purely an equalizing move if we were to swap everything. Maybe black has a little initiative just because white hasn't castled yet, but I see the engine's also saying white can just castle without taking on d4 yet in position. It's maybe still slightly better for black, but close to equal. I guess I can play it aggressively and offer the b7 pawn. It's interesting. The engine is saying take and then d3. If take, queen takes, rook a c8. Black has a lot of play. Not a line I'd be calculating during the game, but I think that all these lines illustrate that black is already doing just fine here, whether I play d4 or knight e4. So knight e4, he went rook d1. Knight a5 is strong. I didn't see that move. Attacking the queen. Rook What happens if he goes here? I just take on d2, making sure he can't take on a5. And then go bishop d7. Okay. Then I'm going to win his knight on a4. I played rook b8. I didn't like to play rook b8. It felt kind of slow, but I just wasn't quite sure what would happen if he was allowed to take on b7. So rook b8, he castles, bishop e6. I mentioned that his queen is misplaced, and I do stand by that. It blocks his b-pawn, and it's not on a stable square. Like, if it gets attacked once, it might not have too many places to go. And the c-file can always be met by putting a rook on c8. So I don't think he's feeling too comfortable with his queen out there. Play knight d4, which I definitely didn't mind seeing. b5 is interesting here too, but I just took the bishop. I didn't want him having time to move the bishop somewhere like e3 or f4. So cash in on the bishop pair. Queen a5. He did play the knight back to c3. I just played rook f c8. As you can see, the position is roughly equal. So maybe I missed a chance or two to capitalize on my slight advantage on the opening, because he has caught up in development now, nearly. Then he went here, which looks like a pretty big mistake. f4 is interesting, trying to crowd my light square bishop. Makes sense, because if that bishop moves, d5 becomes weak. I might think about playing g6, but he could follow up with g4. Okay. Bishop b4 could get sharp. I suspect black is still doing okay, though. Yeah, now he does this, and I could play b5 right away. What if he goes back here, though? b4. Just play to crowd him and use our bishop pair advantage. Knight a4. Rook c7, get ready to double. Okay. How does that compare to my bishop b4 move? Bishop b4 also pretty good. And I think he should play rook d3. The difference being, now if b5, at least his knight can return to c3. So rook d1, on the other hand, yeah, now b5, and he's going to lose a pawn. Knight c5. I think he did it in the best way. Like, the other options are knight c3, take, take, and take. In which case he has a weak a-pawn. My rooks will be active. Or he could play a3, which is probably the worst of the three options, because after take, take, and take, even though I have double isolated pawns, now my rook is just outstanding on b4, attacking b2 and d4. That's probably just losing for white. So knight c5, take, take, and take. Yeah, so this was, I think, an interesting time usage error for him right here. And you can see he's played very quickly, like, common storyline. Several of you have commented that you also see this all the time, but I'm just blown away by how people in the 15-minute pool, they just play like the first part of the game like it's a blitz game, basically. And in their defense, sometimes, I mean, it's close to a blitz game, but you have 3 times as much time as you do in a 5-minute game. And I mean, already he's in a difficult, close to losing spot because he hasn't really paused to think. Not saying like my time usage is always like optimal, let's say, but in fact it's far from that sometimes. I sometimes use way too much time, but at least I'm like trying to use my time at the outset in hopes of building a position. But so many of my opponents don't really do that. So the time usage error I was talking about is he has 1044 here, so he kind of, I think, somewhat instinctively just played rook c1, trying to oppose me on the c-file. Now, if you're considering this for white or black, and it's black to move here, I think the first move you're going to look at is rook bc8. It's just such an obvious follow-up. I wouldn't take here and just give him the file. Why would I do that? That just gives him the c-file. And I can't dispute the file because he trades and then takes the pawn on b5. So that's just silly. I'm not going to play that. And what else can I do? I can't move my rook anywhere. So I'm going to play rook bc8. So at this point, he has 1042. So he thought for, well over a minute on his reply and just instantly lost. It's just so weird. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe he was anticipating what would happen after rook takes c5, but my overall point is if you're going to play rook c1 here, you should just be ready to whip off your next series of moves. because there's no excuse for not anticipating rook bc8. And rook c1, by the way, is probably bad defense. I think you should go rook d2. Then at least try to hold out in the second rank. Like, he can bring his other rook over for support and try to defend these second-rank pawns. Uphill battle, but, you know, it might not be super easy for black to win. My bishop is still somewhat bad, and the passed pawn is blockaded for now. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed this game against Simonhans. I haven't checked where I'm at on the 15-minute pool, so let's take a look at that. I'm actually only number 5 now. I was hanging around at number 2 for a while, but some guys have passed me. Gore is always up there. He plays a lot. No idea who this Chamo Zolano guy is. He's apparently the U.S. Open Rapid champion. Super Chin Chan, seen him before. Seems to be a 15-minute specialist. Very good record. And then we have Multicast, our buddy Multicast. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another standard game. Please leave me any feedback in the comments. Bye, guys.